Rob Ramu has been making and teaching films since the 1980s. 10 years ago, he was a founding member of the Doc Nomads program. Rob and I met each other through the Select network, and we realised we had a lot in common, especially a shared curiosity in how documentary is taught, whether in film schools, art schools, universities or workshops.
John Bergen is a filmmaker-teacher, but he's also a good observer and critic concerning the late changes in film education. The academization of film education also has its downsides, particularly in terms of practice.
On Inishmore, we felt a really long way away from the city. We talked about working in the field, how Flaherty spent months here in the early 1930s researching and shooting Man of Arran.
We questioned Rod Stoneman on Flaherty's methods, often considered as fictional, manipulation, a kind of fudge.
Robert Flaherty was a filmmaker of his times, and therefore the attitudes, some of which we might now think fall short of progressive politics by a long way. His attitude towards the people in distant locations that he wanted to create, discover the noble savage as an image in a mythic and epic way.
The group met in Galway at the Houston Film School, where we set up a Zoom with Professor Brian Winston to talk about Flaherty.
Brian Winston, some of you will know who that is. For those who don't, Brian has a long and distinguished career as a documentary producer, documentary filmmaker, certainly from 60s onwards, so he's definitely has a very strong professional background. But for the past 20-25 years, he's been one of the key authorities on certainly British documentary cinema.
For us, it's a question of, in some cases, revisiting a filmmaker that has, is in the canon, but has been, as you say, some people have dismissed and feel is very much a historical figure rather than somebody who can we can use and employ and borrow from now. So to be honest, I don't have any answers to these questions, but I'm hoping by the end of the week, and it's a pity you can't be with us, is that we'll be somewhat further along that road.
Well, I think that there is no answer, right? What we have is an aggregation of approaches which begin with an uninvestigated, uninterrogated assumption about artistic rights, which is very much where Flaherty is coming from. He, his justifications are all completely traditional.
It's this great breakthrough, the harsh, exotic, but everyday events of Nanook's life become moulded into a drama, shaped by Flaherty's camera and on his film editing bench.
A film about people living in the north,
in the very east, actually. Just across the road, I wanted to say, just across the road from Alaska, in the very east of Russia, very, very far east of Russia. He shot a documentary about, let's say, whalers.
Screening this film on Flaherty's practice in the group was a first confrontation with our own practice.
People hands the same thing looks like.
Now it was time to head west for the Aran Islands, take the ferry to Inishmore, where we would all stay the next 4 days in a B&B. First agenda after breakfast. What is the purpose of this meeting?
Call it a think tank.
Yeah, that's
Rob's. Rob loves that. If you say the word think tank, Rob will be happy. No, but he's right. A think tank is really
a much more, a different affair entirely. And fairly obviously it requires you, and actually when we come to the introductions, it would be super interesting for you to say what it is that you wish to gain from this week, even if that's not entirely clear to you, if you can articulate that in some way that helps us, because Rob and I have kicked it off, we've created the space, if you like, and And something like Man of Aaron, think about when I say it, and really struck me the other day is, of course, how very constructed it is. The editing is very strong, and the editing has a sort of, the piece is edited, I mean, there's music in the film, but the way the film is constructed and the rhythm of the film has a musical quality to itself. So the film has, I talked at the beginning about my own background, how I came to film school already interested in documentary, but I found that as an editor that was sort of not the path I was supposed to take. It is very much from a tradition that has a strong observational element, without question. I mean, also the way that he was working with the people on location here on Arran, but at the same time the film was really made in the editing.
On the tracks of Robert Flaherty, we explored the island with Deirdre, a local musician and writer.
In the evenings, whether it was here or possibly, I took the photos again, possibly even next door as well, they used to watch the rushes at the end of the day to be sure that they got the shot that they were looking for. And they weren't, the reason the film was developed here, and I think it's maybe possibly the first film that was developed in the field.
On an island, you are really confronted by the landscape, the weather, all the elements, sometimes all on the same day. Maybe this helped us focus our minds too. One concrete idea from the group was to create a practical filmmaking workshop for film students and teachers to be held on an island, albeit a very different one from Arran. With this idea in mind, we talked on Zoom to our friend from Greece, Dennis Danilidis.
If I understand correctly, in a year's time, exactly the same period, so towards the second half of September, to have a second workshop. And our proposal will be to have it in a very small island in the south of Greece. It's the southernmost point in the whole of Europe and, of course, of Greece. It's a small island of 80 to 90 inhabitants that has quite a unique aura, history, and I think quite a lot of potential for a very fruitful work. So I have gathered some slides so that you are transported immediately from rainy Arran to the southernmost island in Europe. The place is called Gavdos.
We choose Gavdos, the southernmost island in Europe, as the location for the upcoming workshop. There was quite a discussion in the group about the concept or even the word island.
It was the worst day because we ended only with one word, island. We can't go with that somewhere. I mean, so now it's up to you. Your answer with all that input, and we have a deadline tomorrow afternoon.
I feel like you are the boss and the student, and we need this, and I don't feel good in this.
But
I don't feel good.
You make your own project.
But I don't feel good in this situation. That's what I'm telling 3 days.
But that's why you are here. What are you here for?
To this workshop, John and I said a few times, it's like we're making a film here. And so we in a group process, and we are getting to a zero moment. We had a zero moment this week, and it was painful. But at the same time, the climbing back of this moment was for us a kind of challenged. Can we do? Are we good teachers? It's a way of that. I think many of you said we were leaders, but I felt we were more teachers.
We are here together because Rob and John made some proposition. They sent it to us by email already several months ago.
Yeah.
They left you space to give feedback on it. There was no feedback, we continued. Or there was parts of feedback, we continued, we edited the text. Then we assume that with that text we can create a fruitful and constructive dialogue and workshop during this week. That's what we're here for.
After 4 intensive days on Arran, we had to agree to disagree on many things, but the core ideas we produced were the follow-up seminar in Lisbon in February 22, the island workshop on Gavdos in Greece in mid-September, the Flaherty think tank, which would meet every 2 years somewhere on an island.